Hi friends! I am getting ready to read chapter 14. I hope that you're ready to hear it. This one is called Mr. Greenbaum. Wonder who in the world Mr. Greenbaum is. Let's see. Look here, said Mr. Popper at breakfast one morning. It says here in the Morning Chronicle that Mr. Greenbaum, the owner of the Palace Theater, is in town. He's got a string of theaters all over the country, so I guess we better go down and see him. That evening, it was Saturday, the 29th of January, the Popper family and their 12 trained penguins, 2 of them carrying flags in their beaks, left the house to go and find the Palace Theater. The penguins were all so well trained now that Mr. Popper decided it really was not necessary to keep them on leashes. Instead, they walked to the bus line very nicely in the following line of march. Mr. Popper, Greta and Captain Cook, Columbus and Victoria, then Mrs. Popper, Nelson and Jenny, Magellan and Adelina, Bill Popper, Janie Popper, then Scott and Isabella, then Ferdinand and Louisa. Look at this picture of them marching down the street in a row. That just makes me giggle. Can you see all of them? I think it was probably smart of Mr. Popper to put the people in between them. The bus stopped at the corner, and before the astonished driver could protest, they had all climbed on and the bus was on its way. "Do I pay half fare for the birds, or do they go for free?" Mr. Popper asked. "Janie goes for half fare, but I'm 10, said Bill. "Hush," said Mrs. Popper, as she and the children found their seats. The penguins followed in a very orderly fashion. "Say, mister," said the driver, "where you think you're going with that exhibit?" "Downtown," said Mr. Popper. "Here, let's just call it 50 cents and let it go at that." "To tell you the truth, I kind of lost count whenever they walked past me," said the driver. "It's a trained penguin act," explained Mr. Popper. "Are they really birds?" asked the driver. "Oh, yes," said Mr. Popper. "I'm just taking them down to the palace to interview Mr. Greenbaum, the big theater owner." "Well, if I hear any complaints, off they go at the next corner," said the driver. "Fair enough," said Mr. Popper, who wanted to ask for transfers in that case, but decided to let well enough alone. The penguins were behaving very well. They were sitting very quietly, 2 in a seat, while the other passengers all looked on. "Sorry," said Mr. Popper, addressing everyone on the bus, "but I really need to open all the windows. These are Antarctic penguins, and they're used to having it much colder than this." It took Mr. Popper quite a while to open all the windows, which were stuck fast. When he had succeeded, there were plenty of remarks then from the other passengers. Many of them began to complain to the driver, who told Mr. Popper he would have to take his birds off the bus. He had to repeat this several times. He finally just refused to take the bus any further until Mr. Popper got off. By this time, however, the bus had gotten so far downtown, none of them really minded having to go and get out on the street. Only a block ahead of them shone the lights of the Palace Theater. "Hello," said the theater manager as the Poppers and the penguins all trooped past him. "Sure, Mr. Greenbaum's here in my office. You know, I've heard about these birds of yours, but I didn't really believe it. Mr. Greenbaum, meet the Popper penguins. I'll be leaving you now. I've got to go backstage." The penguins, now standing politely in 2 rows of 6, each looked very curiously at Mr. Greenbaum. Their 24 wide circled eyes were very, very solemn. "All you people crowding around the door, go back to where you belong," said Mr. Greenbaum. "This is a private conference." And he got up and shut the door. The Poppers all sat down, while Mr. Greenbaum walked up and down the double row of penguins, looking them up and down. "Well, it sure looks like an act," he said. "It's an act, all right," said Mr. Popper. "It's called Popper's Performing Penguins. First time on any stage, direct from the South Pole." He and Mrs. Popper had thought up this name for the act. "Could we call them Popper's Pink-Toed Penguins?" asked Mr. Greenbaum. Mr. Popper thought about it for a moment. "No," he said, "I'm afraid we couldn't. That sounds too much like chorus girls or ballet dancers, and these birds are pretty serious. I don't think they would like it." "All right," said Mr. Greenbaum, "show me the act." There's music to it, said Janie. Mama plays the piano. Is that true, ma'am? Asked Mr. Greenbaum. Yes, sir, answered Mrs. Popper. Well, there's a piano right there behind you, said Mr. Greenbaum. You may begin, madam. I want to see this act, and if it's any good, then you people have come to the right place. I've got theaters from coast to coast. But first, let's see your penguins perform. Are you ready, ma'am? Well, we better move the furniture first, said Bill. Oh, I wonder if they're going to be able to do their act and be successful. Wonder if Mr. Greenbaum is going to be able to help them. I guess we'll have to find out tomorrow. I hope you have had a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow to read chapter 15.